And Amy, we're finally ready to begin here now.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you, for those folks who are listening to us and for watching this, what's your full name?
My name is Amy Milligan, Lieutenant.
And Amy came to you from your mom's side of the family? How did you get the name Amy?
Now, my dad's mother's maiden name was Amy Milligan. Okay, and so my dad wanted me to be named Amy Milligan, but the family was big. The older children were naming, helping to name the babies.
Oh.
And so Herb's girlfriend's name was Mildred. And so at first it was Amy Mildred Lieutenant. And then for my 16th birthday, that was one of the presents that I got, that my name was changed from Amy Mildred to Amy Milligan, because that was my dad's, maiden name.
Great story. And you mentioned you had, you come from a large family. Was your father's family a large family too?
Yes, I think, well, I try to keep up with them. I shouldn't say keep up. We're just really getting interested in trying to find out where the family is. In fact, there's a family reunion in New Jersey, the 30th of June, 1st
Wonderful.
and 2nd of July. And so we will be going that. We hosted one a long time ago at Hector State Park.
Really?
We had over 200 people. It was really nice. But anyhow, both Dad and Mom, I think it was in the vicinity of 8 and 9. Now, I am the 11th of my mother and father's children. There were 6 girls and 6 boys. And why I say that is because my dad was married before.
Yes.
And I have a half sister. Okay, she is the oldest one. The youngest one in the family is 64, so I won't tell you what this is. So I mean, I'm somewhere in there.
Okay.
But the family, Mom was from Goose Creek, South Carolina. My dad too. She first came up here to work in service, and then she met my father and went back to Goose Creek to marry him. And my father likes to tell the story about his first wife came to him when he was walking through a path one day, and Eva said to him, Eunice is a good woman, you should marry her. It's a lovely story that we like to tell.
Yes.
But anyhow, Mom married Dad. They had 7 children before they came to New York. And the thing of it was, my mother had been working up here in service, and she really was very impressed with the youngsters going to school for 9 months, because when she was in Goose Creek at that time, Mom's born in 1889, okay? 3 months school they only had, all right? And so, and she said sometimes her mom could afford to pay somebody $1 for her to give some of her children, some extra work. But anyhow, she was impressed with that. And she said to my father, I would like to go back to New York. And of course, he said to her, well, if you ever get the money, let me know and I'll go. Well, I guess one of the ladies that Mom had originally worked for told Mom that if she ever wanted to come back to New York, let her know, and she would send the money. And then they were coming up by ship,
That's
back
right.
and forth, okay? And so...
Tell me what you meant by service. You said when your mom was
housework.
Okay.
Okay? Well, I guess...
Yes.
I did it too myself, but even though I was here. But Miss Virginia, and I never knew what her last name was, anyhow, she sent Mom the money. And she had 7 children then, okay? And so my father came home one night and she said, Jimmy, I have the money. And he wanted to know what was the money. And she said, well, I had the money to go to New York and you promised. And so off they came, and they came to Amityville. Well, Mom and some of the children came first. My dad and them stayed to straighten, I guess, sell their cow and whatever else they had.
Loose ends.
And so they came to New York. I now live in a house that both mom and dad built in 1923.
Wow.
We had it renovated I should say extension put on it about 10 years ago.
And they first arrived in 1923?
Yes, okay. And my father, what I should have said was, Miss Virginia also had a place which she offered for my mom and my dad to stay in. And he said, not on your life. I will do it myself. And so...
Oh, so your dad was
I said, look, we could have been living down by the water. I can't understand why you did. But anyhow, that's not ways. But the family per se is... all the girls are still living. And two of my... Oh, wait a minute. I'm not making... And two of my 6 brothers are still living.
Yes.
We still talk about my mother and father like they're living. In fact, Mary and I are hosting our 7th buffet luncheon for the senior citizens in honor of my mom.
Oh, isn't that great?
She belonged to the arts and crafts group there, and she really liked it. And they have really become accustomed to us doing it. We do it at home, put up tents and have them outside. Sometimes we have entertainment for them, and then they will do entertainment. And so it is really a very nice time.
Your father was a very proud man.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's see. What can I tell you about Dad? Made it into the congressional records, but that was his obituary. But it was entered into the congressional records, which we thought was really nice. It's everybody's kind of. Nancy was the first Black female inducted into the regular Army.
And Nancy is who?
Nancy is my sister, Nancy Lieutenant Kalan. She 20 years in the Air Force. And then she came home and she was a school nurse at Amityville High School. I have another sister, Mary, who she and I and my brother Charlie lived together, and she was in the service for 20 years too. At one time, there were 7 of my sisters and brothers in the service. Okay, and so that's one of the reasons why we had the first telephone on.
Is that right?
On about because we had so many children in the service that they thought that we should have
Now, would this have been during World War II that you're talking about?
That's right. You know, when you had to call the operator and do that. So it's, we're all kind of proud of each other.
Well, I would see why. And you also have a lot of family stories. There's a lot of family history.
Oh, yeah. We keep saying we should write them down. We should write them down. But one of the things that we left when we're doing the renovations at the house, we said, the only problem wrong with this house is that it has no closets. So we go back to the story about Mom said to my father, Jimmy, when we build this house, we need to build some closets. And Jimmy said to her, closets? What do you need closets for? You don't have any clothes to put in them. So, you know, and since we have taken off, you know, parts of rooms to make closets and things like that. But that was...
Now you're still living in the same house today?
Huh?
You're still living in the same house today? And who lives there with you today?
My sister Mary and my brother Charlie. I'm the youngest. They're 2 older ones, but, you know, sometimes you really get at it because they still would like to think of me as being I'm the youngest living there, but I mean, I'm a senior citizen. What's the problem?
Yes. Do you have any children?
No, never married.
Never married?
And never had any children.
And never had any children. That's, yes. So.
I know you think that. Well, you know what? When you go to the doctor and the doctor says, are you single or married? And you say, single. And of course, I'm single. And then the next question is, how many children have you had? And I say, I beg your pardon? And he says, well, how many children? I said, listen, you get it straight. I told you I was single. And I said, and I've not been married. I don't have any children. So we have to start all over again.
That's right. That's right. You mentioned that you're looking forward to a family reunion. Is this from one side of the family or both sides of the family?
Mostly from my father's side.
Yes.
I would say that we have really been know more of my mom's side of the family than my dad's family, and we're just getting into know them. I had started trying to keep up doing a family tree, but so many people and so many, you know.
A lot of time also.
Well, we have part of family, the left-handed family in Columbus, Ohio, and they have started, well, last year, they sent us all forms to do so that they can really get it together to have the, to get the family together. Yes. And there's so many offshoots, I don't even know if they can.
No.
And my feeling is that some of the younger children, they don't care. I know when my mom and dad were telling us about Goose Creek and outdoor bathrooms, and well, we had one there at Amityville.
Is that right? Mm-hmm.
We didn't pay attention, and we should have paid attention. And now, after both of them are gone, we are really very sorry that we didn't pay attention.
I think that's part of the reason that we're doing this too, is that this grabs some of those memories while they're still there. And, you know, I wanted to ask you, to go back to it earlier, you mentioned where you were born, but when were you born?
Do that again for me.
When were you born?
When was I born?
Do you want to answer that? You can take the fifth if you like.
I was born October the 16th, 1933.
Right.
Okay, so
right. You were a Depression baby. You were born in the Depression.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yes,
my niece likes to say when she's around her mother and I, and we wrap up little things after we say, well, I didn't finish eating that, but I just put it in the refrigerator, and she says, sure, fine, I have the Depression. And I said, you're really fresh. I mean, this is a young lady, I mean, she's 30 years old, a doctor, you know, and whatnot, but she really rides us about putting all that little bit of stuff in the refrigerator. But I never even thought of it at that time.
Yeah. What are some of your earliest memories?
Well, living there in Amityville, we had the outside toilet running, pump in the kitchen.
Wintertime, you had to make some nighttime visits.
We had a furnace, coal furnace, and there were two registers, and they were both in the living room, and the heat came up from there. But now upstairs where we were, there were slots with the grating in there, but there were no pipes to come up there. So, you know, hopefully that you would hope that the air came up. A lot of times the air didn't come up. Mom made all kinds of quilts out of coats and things. And of course, in thinking about this, they said, you know, I can't understand why we're so tired. Well, because those quilts were made out of coats and everything else. We were trying to keep warm up there. Oh my goodness. But I mean, that we raised chickens and pigs. My dad had a garden. We canned everything that we could. And what I remember is that Mom only went out and bought flour and sugar, a coffee. Because we raised pigs, and they had a smokehouse. They killed the neighbors who come down when they kill the pigs and cure the meat. Some of this. My mother used to make hedgehog cheese, and she used to clean those chitlins. And I don't eat them to this day because I said I was in the kitchen too many times when she was cleaning them, and they very bad.
Yeah.
But some people call it a delicacy now. But we did everything. Mom, I can remember having my dresses. Some of my dresses were made out of the feed bags that they used to, they got the feed for the chickens. And of course, they started out with chicks, to raise the chickens. Mom made most of our things. I'm really the only one who can really sew. My mom sewed. She embroidered. She, crocheted. She did all those things. And I guess we thought we were, above that. But yeah, I did learn how to sew. And I still do that. So they try, but I have tried to help them too. But my sisters are not very patient with it.
What did your mother enjoy? What did she love to do, or what did she love?
Oh, Mom just liked to be around people and doing things with them. And both sets of grandparents had died when I came along. And so those of us, the younger ones, the five of us on the end, we never really experienced having a grandparents. And then when my older sister had her children, then they would come over. And I think we were really very jealous of them because, what is this? I would tell them, I shouldn't say this on screen, but I would tell them to come after breakfast, bring your lunch, and leave before supper. That was because when we thought we really wanted to eat, Mom would say, come right in. And because our idea was, what is this? Where are the children? And the table was always filled.
Oh, that's a great story. Yeah.
No matter who was there, she would always try to make sure that there was enough for everybody. And I guess everybody just loved her. And my dad, he was a very strict person. Of course, I think he really enjoyed himself when he was younger. But then he took on the responsibility of the family. And during the Second World War, especially the black soldiers, so they have them up at Camp Upton, out at Camp Upton, okay? And what they would do is bust them in on Sunday to go to the different churches that were there, okay? And I would say to my father, I said, listen, when are we going to have a soldier home to bring, he said, not in my house. Mm-hmm. So I said, Daddy, come on. Well, see, we were all girls down on that end, right? And so what he said was, while the bulls were out, he was going to keep his heavens home. And oh gosh, I tell you, it was really something. And I tried to convince him. I said, you have all your children. I said, maybe at that time, 6 in the service. Yeah. And I said, and someone is taking your son or your daughter home, and you should, he wouldn't. Mm-hmm. But he had the rules and regulations. We didn't have to know what my mom and dad would accept or not accept when we were not at home. Mm-hmm. We knew that. And of course, sometimes his friends would say, well, they're not around. I said, yeah, but they always know, and I will know too. Mm-hmm. But Mom could always talk Daddy around to it. So, so we would, if we thought we wanted to do something, then my father would out now and say no. Mm-hmm. First, she would talk to Mother. And I would go in there and lay on her bed and say, give her this old 1, 2. And for years, she would talk to her and tell him that. And then I think I was grown and still doing the same thing. My mother said to me one day, you know what? I have always believed you, but I don't begin to doubt you. And I said, oh, really? And of course, she was much smarter, and for someone who, we tried to figure it out how much schooling my mother had. And
she never told you, huh? She never talked about that?
Well, what we assumed with her only having 3 months of school, okay, and that was for black children. The white children at down south were having more. 3 months of school, we figured that maybe Mom had a 6th grade education if she had that. Mm-hmm. But she was always willing to try to learn to do. And both Mom and Dad encouraged us all to, you can do whatever you want to do.
Yes.
And I may not have the money, but I certainly will be supportive.
You had the experience growing up of a very close and a very loving family, obvious.
Sunday mornings, everybody, no matter, and those older boys used to be out on Saturday night, have nothing to do with it. On Sunday morning, everybody got together, we all knelt and prayed together in the living room. And that started all week, every week. And it was nice until one of my aunts came and she prayed too long. And of course, my mother, my sisters and I will be, oh my goodness. And my mother would, she would be doing one of these things at her because we know we were going to get her. But it was close. The boys were rules, never to touch the girls. You never hit them, okay? And the boys did outside work and they did the heavy work inside, washing floors and whatever. But,
well, your father was there.
There were no battle. Well, yes. We would fight. But my mother would say, if she was out and she came home, I couldn't say to her, Clara, she said, I don't want to hear it. She would not listen to anyone. And so what we found out is that we had to settle our arguments of what it is between. No sides, no nothing.
Right.
And so that's why we often laugh now about
she was a good teacher, though. She was a good teacher.
She was good.
Were there other adults besides your, you mentioned your mother and father, and you had aunts and uncles that you were close with. Were there other adults that had an important impact on your early growing up?
Yeah, well, I know, Mom and Dad's family, some were close around, but I guess we were an entity unto ourselves.
Okay.
And so that it was Mom and Dad and their 13 children. And that was, enough to keep us all going.
Amy, when did you decide that you were going to teach?
Now, I guess when I went to Adelphi and I was studying really to be an interior decorator. That's what I wanted to be.
I see.
And the closest thing to what they had there was home economics. I took home economics, and then the idea was to, if I had to find some kind of substitute work, maybe I could teach. So I took a minor in education.
I see.
I interviewed and got my job at my student teaching job at Baldwin High School. Mm-hmm. And almost from day one, I thought, all right, this is what I want. And listen, I never thought about interior decorating after that.
Were there others, brothers and sisters that had gone to school before you, or were you?
And the first one went to college.
You were the first one.
And my sister Clara, the youngest one, she went to Hofstra, but I have 3 sisters. Mary, Joan, and Nancy, who are all registered nurses. Joan is a nurse practitioner. So when she finally finished, Nancy and Mary never got on what do I want to say? BS degree.
Yes.
But they are registered nurses. Jimmy was a policeman, detective. Charlie, a watchman. Chris owned his own business. We had a family garbage business. Well, I guess it was started before the war, because during the war, my mom and dad did the work. My mom would put her overalls on, and they just had one of those dump trucks.
Yes.
Okay, and she would get up in the back, and my dad would throw the garbage up and she would join. So they kept the business going until the boys came home.
Boy, they were quite a couple.
They were. And they used to drag me around on Saturdays, and I would write the little bills out, for the different ads. So that we did everything. But, at that time, home and church really were the only piece. And I said, when the church doors opened, we were there. I taught Sunday school. I sang in a junior choir. I even played the piano for junior choir.
Did you really?
Did I really? And of course, I could never behave myself. My excuse is when I said, what is the matter with you? And I said, I'm the middle child. That's the problem. And then when you find the middle of 12 tubers. So I said, well, the last 3, I'm the middle one. That's the problem. No, I took piano lessons. My sister Clara is a lyric soprano, and she really has a beautiful voice.
So there's music in the family too, huh?
Well, yes, okay. And the boys, yeah, you're right, guess you're right. Jimmy played the trumpet. Sam was a pilot, the famous 99th Fighter Squadron. Lost in action April the 12th, same day President Roosevelt died. What a day that was.
Oh. Tell me
what he played the clarinet.
Tell me what you remember about that day. That was an important day in all our lives.
Well, on the way home from school, I was in the 6th grade then. Walking past one of the neighborhood stores, and this lady, Mrs. Ritchie, was standing there, and what she said to me was, "Hey, Lieutenant, I heard your brother got killed today." Oh, unreal. Well, anyhow, I got very emotional. And I was walking with a girl that my mother told me that she was not a good influence and I should have nothing to do with her. But anyhow, she said to me, "You don't know," she said, "what happened. You will have to wait until you get home." And that lady, she said, "You have to just ignore her." So anyhow, when I got home, all the shades were pulled. And somebody had already sent flowers. It smelled like a mortuary to me. And I promptly went and threw out all the flowers and pulled up all the shades. Okay, my mom, she was under sedation at the time. I was never chastised for throwing the flowers out.
No.
Never, and it was a very long time before we could really talk about Sam.
Yes.
And, come to think of it, I don't even know how they do that. We had a fella explain to us, he said, if it hadn't been for him, Sam would still be living. He was out the night before and he was not able to, and that was really a terrible thing for this guy to carry on all his life. He said that Sam replaced him on the flight line.
Oh.
And they said Sam's plane and another plane collided. This was over Austria, and they realized that his plane was damaged so that he bailed out. And they saw him bail out, but they never did find him. Okay, so this means that you have to wait a year after, then the government declares him legally dead.
Yes.
Okay, so
he was missing in action at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a terrible trauma.
Yeah, well, he was, in my memory, the nicest of all the boys. And of course, Jimmy used to pick on me. I used to pick on me, but I guess, when I think of it, I probably gave him good reasons. I picked him. I don't have a Kleenex.
Now we're alone right now.
Let's see. All right. No, I usually do. I just know. But anyhow, one thing that I remember is that Jimmy was picking on me. Was picking on me one day, and when they came home from I guess they had been to school, and Sam came home, and I said, "Listen, that Jimmy, he's been picking on me and whatever." So anyhow, he and Jimmy got into some fisticuffs.
Oh.
And they broke the dining room window. Oh God, whatever. And then, thank you. He broke the window. My father was absolutely furious when he came home. So anyhow, there was a big discussion during dinner, which was almost no discussion.
Yes.
But they were told that they will find jobs after school, and they would make sure that the window was put back. And so they did that. The boys all were Long Island champion wrestlers when they were in high school.
Let's talk a little bit more about you. You said you first taught in Baldwin High School, and you decided when you went there that was it. You wanted more of that. What was there about that experience that you so loved right away?
I can't even tell you. It's just that I really put myself into it. I enjoyed it, okay. And the youngsters, responded, I guess.
You were in the right place, and you knew it.
I was in my element, and yes. I knew that was there. That was a really nice point, but it was kind of tough getting a job. When I finished Baldwin, one of the home economics teachers was leaving, and I thought, oh, great, I'll have a job. And they point blank, they said, listen, we don't have any black teachers teaching. Oh, that was Negro at the time.
Yeah.
We don't have any Negroes teaching here in Baldwin. So I was lucky to get that, student teaching over there.
Was that your first paying job outside of working with the family? No. Or
Baldwin was where I did my student teaching.
Yes.
Okay. And so I was definitely looking for a job, and I would have graduated that February. So the next September, I would have been ready for a job. Mm-hmm. And they said the Board of Education, I guess I talked with the principal who he asked about me many years after I had left Baldwin to find out what was Amy doing. Because Freeport had a larger black school population.
Yes, school population.
I was told point blank to the face, and of course I never thought about that until they hired a black teacher or whatnot. Then the Baldwin wouldn't ever do that. Okay, so I said, fine, I'm not here to make any tracks on it, what. So anyhow, I looked for jobs on Long Island, and that is the same kind of things. It was, we don't have any blacks teaching. At that time, it was hard for black teachers to get a job.
You're talking, I think, you're talking about the 1950s, aren't you?
That's right. 1950, that was 1956. And so what I decided was I would go to school and get my master's degree. I went to Penn State, got my master's degree, and I started looking for jobs, and I got the same thing. It said, so you have a master's degree, but you have no experience.
Oh,
and,
yes.
I sat in front of maybe 10, 12 people one day, and they said, well, our children, only the black people that our children know are their maids. She said, suppose you called maid one day. And of course, I looked at them and I said, I have been one, so I probably wouldn't make any difference. Well, they didn't like that at all. My first job that I got up in Ellenville, the only thing that I was asked was would I have any problems disciplining a white child? And I said, children are children. And he said, if you want the job is yours. So anyhow, I went up there. I was there for 2 years, and of course they started cutting back already.
This is Ellenville, New York? Is that what you said, Ellenville?
Ellenville, New York,
Yes, okay.
Mm-hmm. Up by the Neverly and all that. And so then I came back. I registered with the New York State Employment Agency. And the fellow that was trying to find teachers a job, he was from American. He was looking for a job. He was looking for a job himself. He couldn't find one. But anyhow, I came for the interview for Brentwood. Brentwood at the time had the largest black teacher population. We said that they accepted teachers on their merit. And wherever they, never mind that they went to school down south or they went to Ivy League school or whatever. If you came and you had the qualifications, then you got the job.
And this was Brentwood in the late 50s, I guess.
1959.
59.
Okay. But of course, I walked into the job and I think Dr. Hoyt was a
superintendent.
Was a superintendent then. Yeah. Okay, I first went to the school and I talked to Lenny Sachs, Dr. Sachs. And he said, okay, the job is yours. And of course, he was sitting with his feet up on the desk and I kept thinking, But now I went over there. When I got to Dr. Hoyt said, Dr. Sachs said, Dr. Hoyt is Amy Lieutenant. And Dr. Hoyt said, Amy Lieutenant? He said, do you know Mr. Painter? And I said, Painter? You mean Fred B. Painter that used to be? And I said, yes, I do know him. He said, Mr. Painter said, if you find a lieutenant and they want a job, you give them the job. He said, "Did you want the job is yours." Do you know what? One of the things that I have always tried to do, I wanted a job on my own merits. I did not want a job because I was a lieutenant. Okay, yes, the family had a nice, and still does have a nice reputation. Well, like, there are some people who you don't want to know. But anyhow, the whole thing was like in Amityville. My brother, who was the president of the Board of Education, pressed me to go there. And I said, I don't want a job because I'm a lieutenant. I said, I want a job. I said, listen, I'm smart enough. And I said, I have my master's degree. Don't give me a job because I'm a lieutenant. Well, they didn't give me a job. Neither did they call me or tell me they got the application or the job was gone. But anyhow, I came to Brentwood to work.
Now, was that considered an interview at the time that Lenny Sachs interviewed you, or is it?
Well, he interviewed me good.
There was an interview.
Okay, he interviewed me good. Okay, the only thing I said there was that, but that was the essence of it.
That's the essence of it.
When I got to Dr. White was, if you know that Mr. Painter said, if you can get yourself a lieutenant, the job is yours. And I told him, thank you very much, the job is mine. Well, I was getting kind of desperate then because I really wanted a job. But I have really enjoyed doing that. Can I just tell you something about Lenny Sachs?
Yes, please.
Well, I shouldn't say Lenny Sachs. Maybe it was the whole creation. They all thought that home economics teachers were there to sew buttons on and, you know, all that kind of business. And so I would go into school in the morning and this one would come down and say, listen, Amy, would you sew my button on? Would you do this? And I said, I'm getting sick and tired of this. So Dr. Sachs asked me one day, and I said, yes. He said, would you sew this button on, suit jacket? I told him, okay, fine. I went down there and I got my children together and I told them to do. And so I sewed his button on. Then I closed up his pocket up here with the cigarettes in, and I short sleeve one right down here and one right up here. And then I asked somebody to please watch my class while I went down there. And I went down and knocked on the door. I said, Dr. Sachs, I have the jacket. He said, oh, that's nice, Amy. I said, stand up. Let me help you into it. So he stood up to hand it in, and I left him just like this with this thing. And I said to him, you see that? I want you to know that I'm here to teach the children, not to sew buttons on people's clothes because they have someone at home who can do it for them. And after that, it was funny, but I thought that was really, but we had great times.
Oh, great
he
story.
was really, I was sorry to see him go because I really enjoyed him. North Jordan High School was opening. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Maroka, he was just like this. And of course, like most things, you learn to appreciate things after and what you can know. And because he interviewed everybody in there and he asked, you know, would you like to go? And I told him, no, I don't want to go to North Jordan High School. I want to stay here. Well, I was away for the summer. And when I came back, my mom said, they're calling you. They're calling you over at, they said North. I said, what are they calling me from school? So anyhow, I drove over and I went to South. Stella Nash was the secretary then. She said, I said, listen, what are you calling me for? She said, we're not calling you from here. She said, well, they're calling you from North Jordan High School. I said, for what reason? I said, well, you've been transferred. I said, what do you mean I've been transferred? Oh, I was furious. And I said, he just needs to fool with me and I'm going to quit. I'll find myself another job. He was not a guy that laughed and joked with you, but he really helped us to understand those youngsters. And we had one heck of a good school over there. He fooled me one time. I should say he fooled me. I was having some trouble in the cafeteria. And so it was Friday afternoon, and Mr. Maroka calls me in the office and said, listen, Amy, I wish you would do me a favor. And he said, because I was on cafeteria duty in the small cafeteria. For years, I was the only female on cafeteria duty in his building, okay? And I used to scream and holler about that. He said, we need some help over there. He said, would you move over? And I said to him, oh, I guess, why not? And then over the weekend, I thought to myself, this is a big 200-pound guy that's in that other cafeteria. Why should I go in there? I'm 98 pounds soaking wet then. So I said, I'm not doing it. So Monday morning, I went right into Mr. Rourke and I said, you know what? I talked with you and I said, I don't think it's fair, and I would like to say that I don't want to go in there anymore. I said, but you promised, Amy.
Oh, gee.
Oh, God, I couldn't get out of it. So I said, okay, you got me. So I was in the cafeteria. I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I lost my hearing. That's what I would like to say, that.
Because of the din of the noise, you mean?
Yeah, well, listen, Stephen Hoyt was in my cafeteria with his friends. God, they would give me such a time. And I would stand right up there behind them. They would like to come in late. And of course, I made my own rules. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you come in late, then you can't, you have no ice cream and you eat last. You eat last. Oh, and they would try to give me a bad time and I would give it right back to them. But the best thing was coming about cafeteria duty. All these years, I finally got back into the small cafeteria, and Mr. Rourke consented to have me train this other guy, Dick Griffin. So if I was staying there and if Dick Griffin did good, then he would take me off, right? And so one day, Dick and I were in the cafeteria, and this man comes in. And he's walking around and looking, and I said to Dick, I don't even know who that guy is. I said, but don't do anything any different than what you do with whoever he is. So anyhow, he did stop and he said, are you Miss Lieutenant? And I said, yes, I'm Miss Lieutenant. And he said something else. Oh, he knew about my brother's wrestling in Amityville. Oh, yes, fine. Okay, so let's go along. And I come to find out he was a Board of Education member who went to the meeting and told them that everybody should have a Miss Lieutenant in their cafeteria. I don't think, big deal. I didn't think that was such an honor. And and he praised me to high heaven. I said, oh,
very nice.
I guess that was nice. But I had good experience in it.
I was going to say, you've had a wonderfully rich experience in Brentwood, right from the beginning.
Well, because, you have to work with it. I work with a PTA. We help put on fashion shows and, do things like that. And then Brentwood at that time, it was more like a family. In fact, our first big a district-wide party that I remember going to was held in the basement of Grover and Juanita Adams' house. Okay, and we were all, in somebody's house in the basement. Then, of course, it grew. So then I had the cafeteria, and I think it's a cafeteria, but we used to have parties in the school, and
sure.
It was a good old time, and then it just got so big, and it got wheelie, and all the rest, and then the union came.
Tell me have you always taught the same grades? Have you always taught the same grades?
Yeah, junior high school. Well, you see, when I was up in Elmville, I taught 7 through 12. I determined then that those children who were in high school didn't want to learn. Or if they wanted to learn, they had to give you a hard time first. And that the junior high school students were willing to learn. Maybe they were discipline problems, but they were willing to listen to whatever you had to tell them.
Yes.
And it was easy, and you got some kind of feedback instead of fighting all the time with the youngsters who want to. Well, then
you left before the junior high became the middle school then.
Indeed.
Yes.
But before I left, I think 1 year or two, we had a 6th grade there at North Junior High School. Supposedly self-contained. But I think that if you talk to other teachers, that 6th grade class that left North Junior High School caused havoc from 7th grade straight through the high. It was not the kind of thing to have them there with the 8th and 9th graders. It was done. And so now, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I tried to substitute sometime in elementary school. It's not I don't have the time and patience for the younger ones. Mm-hmm. I think what I like about the junior high school was that you switched the classes. You know, you came in and you started, maybe the first class worked great. And then the second class was lousy, but it didn't spoil your whole day because you had 3 or 4 more chances to do. Yeah. And in the process, you learned and picked up things that, you know, that you could improve and do it so that you all the time things were changing all the time. It was not static. And so to be, when I tried to substitute in the elementary school in Amityville, I couldn't believe that. I told him, listen, do me a favor, don't call me again.
Okay. Yes.
Because that was just not my temperament.
And it wasn't fun anymore doing that. No.
No.
You've mentioned some of the people that you worked with when you first came to Brentwood. Are there any other people you'd like to mention? Other people you can think
I don't know. I'll see. What do you mean? Let's see.
Any of the staff that you worked with? Any of the?
Ed Polefchik.
Okay.
Okay. Ed would get up there in the meetings, and of course, I have always been the kind of guy person that I like to enjoy myself, and I think good laughing. There's enough wrong with me for me to laugh about myself, because I know those other people, they're laughing, but let them go ahead. I'm doing my thing too. But Ed would get in the meetings, and he would talk, and he always had his eyelids stand. So I said to him, I asked him, I said, Mr. Polefchik? He said, what is it? I said, you have your notes written on the back of your eyelids. He did it. What do you mean, Amy? But anyhow, I said to him, do you realize when you talk, no, she never look at us, she always have your eyes in it. But Ed stayed behind me when we had the hand exams in or whatever. He was always helpful. I think he made me work harder than some of the other people to do that, but I always appreciated it because I learned a lot from him.
How did you see your purpose being a teacher? I mean, you have a job description. We all had job descriptions, but how did you define your purpose?
That I had something to offer, to teach, that's something that was useful, that they could use whatever it was, and into the future and whatever. I used to use my mother as an example many times when I would tell them. I said, my mother, I guess mom lived till she was 98 years old. Oh. And I would say to them, listen, my mother's 85 years old. And I said, she does not. And that was the absolute truth. Mom did not ask me to do anything without saying please. And when it was finished, then she said thank you. And I said, I want that. I said, from you. Mm-hmm. I never allowed the youngsters to talk. I would say to them, if you can't say anything good, well, I would tell my mother, if you can't say anything good about a person, I said, then don't say anything at all. Now, they didn't believe me, and so one day, one of the youngsters was really ranking out one of the teachers. And I kind of looked and I said, okay, here. I wrote a pass out, and I said, hey, go up to see the teacher. She said, what am I going to say to him? I said, well, you'll have to explain. I've said, if you can say anything about anybody, and it's good, then whatever it is, you should be able to say in front of their face. I said, now, you said that, go and tell her. What? She said. I said, well, you'll have to explain to her what it was. And I said, so now leave. And, I think it was an 8th or 9th grader. So that they have some kind of idea. The child left and the child came back and the pass was signed by the teacher. Now, I never asked what was when, but I didn't have any more trouble with the youngsters. There you go. With that way. Mm-hmm. They couldn't.
Go ahead, say it.
I couldn't say shut up. It was kind of, not only book learning, but they had to learn how to get along with each other. And then when they started integrating some of the special youngsters into the classroom, then this was another, well, for me, it was an experience of how to try to make sure, and I absolutely, they could not say anything ugly or bad about the other people. Now, I did try to explain one class that we had, and I said, now, would you say, I said, he has different interests. I said, but he's in our class. And I said, and we're all going to try to help him and to get along with him. So it was not just book learning, you know, it was life. And if you have a little bit of manners, you can get a long way. And I would tell him, I said, you know, if you frown, I have to make faces. I said, you know, it takes less facial muscles to smile than it does to frown. And I said, now I want you to make an ugly face. And then you have to make an ugly face. And so then they could feel all that. And I said, now smile. And I said, it's easy to do that. Okay. So, I mean, it was.
What happened to the home economics department? The home economics department at the high school was eliminated almost after a while. Was it the cost to the district?
You see, we were losing a lot of it to the social studies department, which I thought, yes, they have an idea to teach about families, but they will talk about families and extended families and whatever. We talk about, you know, what makes a family and how you get along and whatever. They're not doing all that. And so they kept doing that. But I guess it was on me. We first taught 20 weeks.
Yes.
Then we had the children 10 weeks. Then it was 7 weeks. And one time we were teaching them every 5 weeks, we switched a whole class. Well, I mean, and that, you know, do that. And I don't quite know what they're doing, but the best thing was when they integrated the classes and had the boys and the girls in the class, because at first it was just the girls and the boys. And I really enjoyed that. And the boys had a lot to go through because they got such a stigma. They said, you go to home economics class, you know, that kind of thing. And so good. But I had a young man the only fella in my 9th grade sewing class. And he was just a little guy. I was little, you know, short too, but he was shorter than I am. And no matter what, he made the best pair of slacks that he used, you know, to sew. He sewed just like all the rest of them. And I said, if people know, I said, and I would say to them, you know what? Who are the chefs in the world? What? Women are just becoming known as being chefs. They were always men. And I said, so what's the problem? And I said, and if you want to eat, then you'll have to learn how to put it together and go ahead and do that. And so I would say to you, the boys loved sewing on those sewing machines much better than the girls. And the girls seemed to excel when they were on the other side. When I was in Amityville High School, I finished everything, was 16, had all my credits done and whatever. And my mother said, you're too young to get out of school, you will stay in school. And I said to them, I had taken everything that I could take. And I wanted to take shop classes. Well, they call it shop then, not industrial arts. Why, you would think that I tried to turn the world upside down. They said, what are you talking about? Girls don't take shop. Yeah. I said, listen, what's the problem? Yeah. I would just like to come in and I can learn that way. So they wouldn't let me do that. So I ended up in a business course, taking shorthand. Well, I didn't really last. My mom got sick and for a while then, so they let me go to school half a day since I had everything. And so I didn't really finish the business course. But I had some kind of an idea that the people who took the business courses weren't too bright. You know, would you ever think about that? No, well, you see, and maybe that's what happens with the tracking and all the rest of that. Think of all those years ago. I was in an academic course. And that was the way to go. And the people who took shorthand and type, I took typing. I went there typing out to learn, pick those things out. But even back then, they think that, oh, that was awful.
You started mentioning before that there had at one point not been a union. You said, and then the union came. And I want to come back to talk about your experience with either the teachers' organization or with the union or any of those members.
Well, no, I think we really needed a union. I do believe my name is on the original list of people. My feeling then, there were a lot of younger men who were married and who were willing to, married, and some had young families who were willing to stand up for their right. I was single, and I was older too.
Yes.
If they could do it, that I could do it too. Okay? To get involved with the union and, the powers that be were just, they weren't given anything.
Absolutely
not to the teachers at all. And we really needed to do that. And
do you remember how much you made the first year in Brentwood?
Oh, man. $5,700 with a master's degree. I thought I was making big money when I got my job up in Ellenville for $4,300. And then I was rich when I came out here, $57. $5,700.
Before taxes, though, Amy.
It took me 10 years before I brought home $100 a week clear money. Because nobody wants to believe that. Okay, but now they're starting these youngsters out with, I guess after 28 and a half years, I was,
I wonder if they have any idea of the struggle, though. Any idea of what, for example, someone like you went through, the hours, the time that you put in to help the union organize or to help the teachers organize?
I guess I was more supportive, I think. I was never, the only time that I was the building rep once. Okay.
What building? Would that North?
At North. Okay, they had a reputation, They would say, why don't you do this? And find some of the people who were on the building. I was good friends with Bill Kerlick. He was the principal, okay? And so when they voted me to be the building rep, they said, Amy, you are very good friends with the principal. Now that you're building rep, you have to stop. I said, what? Are you kidding me? I said, he's been my friend. He'll always be my friend. But the bottom line is that I did, I guess, just like everybody else, a lot of the things that were taken care of at North Junior High School were done because Bill and I were friends. And I said, just like you go to places and you sit around and you talk. Yes, we talk. He wasn't always truthful. Okay, and I guess I skirted around the edges too. But I also found out that management and the people, I'm trying to remember what it was, something we were really into, and nobody was telling the truth. Okay? And one of the things, I guess, that I told them, we had an incident at school, and I asked this teacher point blank a question, and he answered, and it wasn't the truth. And I fought with them, with the other people in the union. They said, well, you have to support him. I said, he's not telling the truth. He said, well, you, the building rep, and you have to go into the office. I said, I'll go with him, but I will not open my mouth. Listen, they talked to me and they talked to me. I said, I'm not doing it. I said, now, if you're going to have a good organization, you have to, this guy, he's part of it. But I said, he did not support us. He didn't care whatever happened. Now he wants us to come in there and do everything for him. I won't do it. Okay, so they finally, took care of everything. I said, but we fought. North Junior High School was vocal all the time when we went to the union meetings. Some people say, oh, no, not them again. Yes. But when we had our meetings, we thrashed out whatever it was going to come out, and we had a consensus of opinion as to what we were doing. So when we got to the union meeting, we all stuck together. We knew exactly where we were going, what we were going to do. So in that essence, it was good. And they would say, take care of things in the building if you can. Well, we took care of things in the building. And so how come you didn't tell us?
Yeah.
And then eventually it seemed like all of the union people, except for one person, oh God, oh my goodness, the union people leaving, going into management. Okay, leaving and going. They had all kinds of excuses, you know.
Who was the first person in the BTA that you worked with that was president?
That was, say that what that was.
Who was president of the BTA when you first got involved with the organization?
I think Jack Zuckerman was. Okay. Oh yeah, well, he didn't go in the management, but you know those are the other ones after. And oh gosh, I can see that guy. I can't think what's his name now. That's
before Jack or same
no, after Jack.
After Jack.
Who's the president? Who's the president of the teachers union now?
Now it's Joe Hogan.
That's right. He's the only one that didn't go. All the rest of them went. That's right. Okay.
There have been so many people that have occupied that seat. Many of them before it was a union. It was not yet a union when Jack was there. But that was a crucial time.
It was. It was. And well, the union helped to make things much better for us. Now, I can appreciate that now, being retired. When I was single, because I was single, I should say, Brentwood has always paid my health insurance. You know, when they talk about something, I said, I don't know anything about paying health insurance.
Brentwood has been very good to us in that
okay,
respect,
right.
Yes.
And then now that I'm retired, well, I said they're replenishing what Medicare said, but I in turn have to report it as income. But I said, when I talked with my sister who
the district
retired from Amityville, you know, no such thing.
No such thing.
And the only thing that I have to pay for is dental insurance.
Yes. Now you knew Dave Martz, who was president of the union, and of course you were here and working the same time that Guy DiPietro worked his way up through the union into the superintendency.
Yeah.
You must have known Guy and
yes,
have Guy stories. Everybody has Guy stories.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Do I have a story about him? I don't think so. Do I?
I didn't want to cut you short there. I'm just thinking there have been so many people that you've known and you've worked with. But the union and the teachers organization, I agree, has been very important. And it continues even though we're retired to be very
that's why Ronald Reagan had passed that law about the, 2 days for 1 day being out as a way of cutting down the unions. But I mean, maybe that's the reason why the work that people do is not as good as it should be, because there's this threat over your head of taking 2 days off. But now, Roosevelt suffered really very bad. They went out on principle, but my gosh, it must have been April or May before they got their first paycheck. Okay, we as union people sent money and tried to help, but I mean, what a way to live.
When you first started to teach, there was no Social Security for teachers either. It wasn't taken out. And you had to put into your retirement.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Well, and you see, I think about that, and they have no way of, well, we put money into our retirement. We started out with 8%, 8%, and then you could cut it down to 5%. Of course, I said, I'm tired of giving them my money. I think I would take my money out, but the money grew. And what was that? When I retired, then I chose to have my money in a lump sum, which is nice. Now, the young people who are starting to teach now, I mean, if they don't retire, well, I don't think the situation is really so conducive.
It's different. And I was going to ask you, if you could give some advice to somebody who's starting out today to teach, how
yeah, look, first of all, you have to be true to yourself.
Okay.
And you have to you have to do and really stand behind what you do. You know, it's like we were told, go out in the hallway, you know, during class. And of course, I would be out there and giving them the old one too. And then I would look around at everybody on the corridor. They're standing around looking at me. What is this? So I said, I am not going. I told, who was it? I forget who the principal was. I said, listen, I'm not going down the hall anymore. You just have to write me up. I said, those other people are not doing anything. And then, so he said, okay, it'll last a couple of days.
Yes.
And of course, I was mad about that.
Yeah.
Said, well, I couldn't take it. But the other people said, well, we don't do anything because we were wondering, how do you think of all those things you say to those youngsters that you stop? What are you talking about? I said, well, first of all, I said, they can give you an attitude. I said, you know, then you tell them, you know, don't be looking at me like that or what. I said, there's so many things you can say, but you have to care about the children. And if you don't care about the children, and I know even when I was working, there were people who were coming in paycheck. How do you work and teach school and go home without books, without ever doing anything? It's a 24-hour job, you know? And so you do that. But one thing I tell you what, I also learned that when you're ill, don't go to work. Because if you go to work, they expect you to be 100%. Okay, now for years I would go, my sister said, stay home. And I said, what do you mean? I promised the children I would do such and such. And so I'm going. But then I find out when I get there, they expect me to really, that's when I said, oh no, well, I guess, and then I was getting older too, and I understood a little bit better.
Yes.
But I mean, they should try to stay in good health. And when you go.
You were ready to retire in 1989. Is that right? Is that when you retired?
Well, let me tell you, I completely lost my hearing 1985. I went to school that first day. I couldn't hear a thing. I had lost my hearing twice before and had, you know, come back. I never paid any attention to it. But I lost my hearing. I'm trying to think who was the principal. I guess Bill Curlick was the principal. And I finally went over to school and I said to him, listen, I woke up this morning and I can't hear a thing. I said, I usually, if I sit by a microphone, I could. I sat here in the high school, right under the speaker, I couldn't hear a thing. So he said to me, never mind going to the meeting. You know, he said, if you can't hear. So I spent all day making substitute plans all that afternoon and left late that night. So I never did go back to work again. I couldn't hear. We switched doctors. And he thought I was a lost cause. And I said to him, you know what? I expect my hearing to come back because I had lost it and I expect it to come back again. And it just was so long. Of course, then they run me through a battery of tests and whatever, and I'm feeling sorry for myself, whatever. When I stopped crying and I got myself together, I said, I'm not rolling over and play dead. Hoping that some way could help, for a year, I did speech reading. As I tried to do it in a group, but my hearing was so bad that I could not even do it in a group. So it was on a one-to-one basis. But anyhow, I went to the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, still thinking seriously that it would, I would get my hearing back. And I said, I need to be trained for something. And they sent me to school and I earned myself an associate degree in American Sign Language Studies. All to say that I would have some way to communicate if the hearing, because it seems in 1985, the hearing just went down, down, down. So without my hearing aids now, it has to be 90, 95 decibels for me to hear. But it's an advantage, even though it's a disadvantage. I don't listen to a lot of loud noises. I turn them off. Or I use it as an excuse to say to someone who said something to me that I really don't want to hear, that I don't understand, or it's not working today. It's not working today. Or no, I try not to smile. I said, you have to be very careful. So, my sisters will tell other people that I have selective hearing, and which I do. Well, everybody has selective hearing. What's with that?
Amy, did it come back? Did you get your hearing back after 1985?
Not unless only with the aid of hearing aids.
Did you come back to teaching?
No, I did not come to teaching.
Okay, you did not.
I decided there was the only way that I could function in a class was to either teach in a deaf school where they have, and I didn't know enough sign language to do it in the first place, where they would have a loop in the room. Yeah. Now, for instance, I belonged to at one time, self-help for hard of hearing people. And they had a loop. And it was a wire that ran all the way around, ran by a machine that they had. And if everybody put their hearing aids on the telephone coil, which helps you talk better, then it was just like you could hear all the time. And it's really wonderful. And then after the meeting was over, someone would say, huh? What did you say? That kind of thing. Well, if it was, I expect them to, fix up a room for me to do it. There was just no way of doing it. And I did not have enough experience. Now, I know a few sign language, I can do that.
But you retired in 89?
Mm-hmm. I was 55.
So in 89, from 85 to 89.
I was on disability.
You were on this. Okay, that's what I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, in 1989, you did what after you left? What have you done? It's been almost 11 years.
I guess before I started, after I kind of got myself together, I needed to do something. So I was going to pick my check up, and one of the aides said to me, "Oh, Amy," she said, "you sound much better." And I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Oh, of course, I didn't sound good before." And of course, they don't know what to say behind that. But I found I was home. I was living in an apartment in Bayshore. I couldn't hear a thing. I could look at television. I couldn't hear music. I couldn't hear radio, nothing. So I was virtually in a world of silence. Yes. And I lived by myself, so there was nobody to talk to. And so therefore, what I found is I was losing my ability to speak because I was not around people. So then the idea was to get out and do something. And I went to Good Samaritan Hospital when they had an open house one day and I thought, well, if I can hear enough to understand what they're saying, then maybe I can do that. And I've been going there ever since.
So the jacket that you're wearing now is part of the uniform from Good Sam.
Yeah, I volunteer.
And you volunteer at Good Sam. That's wonderful. So that's a give-give situation.
Well, I go into the pharmacy. I work in the pharmacy. I volunteer in the pharmacy. And am the second vice president of my guild, which means in charge of membership. And this is, I just participate with them. Yes. And I belong to the Breezy Point Yacht Club in Amityville. I am the rear Commodore these days.
Can't keep this lady down.
Huh?
I said we can't keep you down.
No.
You also mentioned that you were active for a while with the Suffolk County, an organization of teachers, retired teachers.
Okay, yeah. Well, we were just going to the luncheons and things like that, but not. I shy really away from the responsibility of being an officer in any organization. Okay. When I retired, I started taking calligraphy courses, and I belonged to the Island Scribes. I found myself as the editor of the newsletter. I didn't know how that happened. I was supposed to be helping, and then all of a sudden I was the editor of the newsletter. It takes so much responsibility and so much time. And, for someone who's retired, and Mary and I do a lot of things around the house. And
you're talking about your sister?
Right. It's, I enjoy being home. I have no problem being by myself. Okay. I like to be around people. I do get out to see them and there's always something to do at home.
Yes.
And because I belong to Irish Scribes, I'm almost computer literate, but self-taught. Yes.
Wonderful.
So that I do a lot of things. So now I make all my cards that I send out. Mm-hmm. I finally got email. So my younger sister, I can't believe some of those jokes she sends me over email. And I said, I can't believe this. Okay, so I should do that. I had email from my first principal from Ellenville. Okay,
it's
Mr. Gillen, because he calls me Sergeant Lieutenant. He said, all right. He said, so he's, I don't know what I did, but we both belong to American Online. And then he switched because he said, I'm 80 years old and I'm too old to be waiting while they're putting it together. So he switched. And then after that, they said I wouldn't accept his mail. So it was back and forth, back and forth. So anyhow, I think I figured it out. So, but I have been to luncheon reunion with the teachers from Ellenville. It was really nice. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to have accomplished over the years of your active service that you weren't able to do, but you wish you could have?
Well, I guess I would just like to have the home economics or, oh my goodness, I can't even remember what they called it because they use so many different terms these days for things that people don't even know what they're supposed to be doing, okay? To have them if I could have help to keep the program in the school and not get rid of it, farming it out to, well, the social studies people, I don't know whether or not it's because they had a larger group or whatever, how they presumed that they could teach something that we went to school for. And I mean, now, I'll tell you something, that they blessed me with teaching a class outside of my area of expertise, honors social studies class, 7th grade. I couldn't believe that. I said to the principal, I didn't even like 7th grade social studies when I was in school. But anyhow, I know myself that when I taught them 7th grade social studies, it had nothing, very little of it hit on what we were teaching the youngsters in home economics. And for something that is so practical for the youngsters that they can use both, male and female, and for them to cut it out because of, I don't know. I don't even know what their reason is. And then again, the Suffolk County Home Economics Department tried to get some of the colleges to teach home economics. Now, because Adelphi dropped it a long time ago, and they still call me, listen, Mitchie, you give money? And I said, you gave it my department? I said, I give my money to Penn State. Of course, they don't like to hear that. But I mean, when they had the program, it was a good program.
Yes. Yes.
And then I don't even know why they gave it up. I guess, so many other different kinds of programs they needed.
One of the many things that have been traded off, whether the cost of new equipment had anything to do with it, the taxpayers, I have no idea, but a lot has been lost as well as gained in the process. What's ahead for you, Amy? What's in the future for you?
Say that again.
What's ahead? What is in your future?
What is in my future? Well, enjoy life. Be healthy. Stay healthy.
Yes.
I won't ever be able to hear good like I used to, but I mean, I've learned how to use that, to be able to laugh about the things that not so right or other people think so right. I think that if a person can laugh about whatever it is that's a shortcoming so other people think.
We've never spent this amount of time together before. And just the time that we've been together, I can hear that you are able to put a humorous spin on many of the events of your life. You are able to laugh at a lot of things.
Okay.
And it's been a joy for me to listen to some of the stories that you've told.
Well, maybe I don't know what it is, but I said, my younger sister was my best audience. I could tell her anything, and she would just she still does the same thing. And so my mother used to get so excited because she said Clara laughed so hard she was going to hurt herself. Just one other thing. Clara, when she was on leave when she had her first child from Amityville, substitute and taught music in Brentwood for half a year. Yes, she did. And of course, what they told the youngsters was that this lady that's coming in is Miss Lieutenant's sister. I didn't think that was the matter, but she was tougher than me. She was tougher than me anyhow. But anyhow, she did teach in Brentwood for a semester.
How many years were you in Brentwood?
From 1959 until 1985. Okay, right. And then it was on disability.
Yes, yes.
But I mean, I've made some good friends.
And you've seen Brentwood change quite a bit from 59 until you left.
I would say too. One of the things that I don't know, the buildings look like when I went to North Middle. Was honored that they asked me to come over for their ceremony with the time capsule they had. Oh, that was really great. Okay. But when I walked outside the building, I thought, oh God, this place doesn't look like, I don't know. I don't know what I really expect, but I guess I expected it to look brighter or whatever it was. The people that I know from who were there before, and even one of the young teachers said, "Oh yeah, Amy, I know you." Because I said, "From where?" And of course, when we got to talking, I was long gone before that. But I guess it was maybe people had talked and he.
I think so. I think so. Some people remember us anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. But it was. I believe it was a good time.
I can't thank you enough. This is such a good
idea.
I can't thank you enough for spending the time with us. And in spite of the fact that you have these many volunteer things that you're doing, you were able to give of yourself again. And thanks on behalf of everybody at Rob's. Thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.